Welcome to a series where I talk to my facilitator friends about things that facilitation gets confused with. My name is Lucy Chambers, and I believe that being quite precise about the terms that we use for the things that we tell people that we do is very helpful. And the other reason that I'm really excited about having this series of conversations about what facilitation is, where the edges of it are, is that I believe that as facilitators, when we know where the edges of our craft is, and we know where we are stretching or where maybe another role serves our clients better, we will just be better at doing what it is that we want to do. And maybe our clients will know what it is that we do slightly better. So today's topic is facilitation versus moderation. It's one of those topics that comes up again and again and again. And my guest today is Ewen Le Borgne, who is one of my very good facilitator friends. He's an amazing facilitator, and I'm very excited to introduce him to you. And here he comes. Ewen!
Hi, Lucy.
Excellent. So I know we want to get straight into the conversation, but I think it's useful that people know who you are and what it is that you do. So give us a short version of what it is that you do.
Yeah, so and though I'm a facilitator, actually my job title is rather sort of process agent provocateur. And what I really do with that, or what I really mean with that, is I help and I lovingly challenge people to unlock their facilitative, collaborative, and relational self, so that together with other people, they can make magic happen. That in principle helps human systems and the environment.
That's a very excellent segue into the way that I want to start this series of conversations, because you have already let on to the world that you are a French speaker.
That's right.
And one of the things that I think makes the topic of what is facilitation and what is this other thing really complicated is that some languages don't have words for what I would call in English facilitation. So I'm just wondering, how do you describe in French what you do? And is there a word for facilitation, or how does it work?
So, a couple of elements there. One is I actually don't really work in French very much. So usually, yeah, I don't face that kind of question, that kind of issue. But I have been talking with a number of people that are collaborating, yeah, working on collaborations and need facilitation support. And I think things are a bit changing in the francophone world. I can speak more about France, not all the other French-speaking countries. Maybe, yeah, francophone Africa to some extent. I think that the word facilitation and facilitator is starting to really make some progress and being recognized more. But typically, originally, what would be used as a word is moderateur rather than facilitateur. So moderation, and hence this conversation. What are the differences? What are the similarities? And why, indeed, as you said, these word choices matter for the mental models that people have about what these functions entail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it happens also that some clients approach me to indeed moderate some sessions or be a moderator. Yeah, I mean, we have an interesting conversation that follows. I'm sure we'll unpack that.
Excellent. German is exactly the same. So German does not have a word for facilitation. It's Moderation. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why I was very passionate about actually teasing out the differences between these two things before we did the research, because we went and we asked LinkedIn for some smart ideas, and we got a lot of feedback on the difference between the two terms. But before I did that research, my association with moderation was panels. That you moderate a panel, but you facilitate a workshop. Is that your association? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I see that word crop up. Certainly, again, in the English-speaking world, the most. but again, even when I get approached to moderate something, I think what people have in mind is broadly someone taking care of the process. So in their mind, I have the feeling it's actually what I would probably consider more facilitation. But indeed, if you're moderating a panel, you're doing something very specific that is actually, there's some similarities, but there's a lot of big differences with the work that a facilitator does. So, but yeah, I think I agree that panel moderation is probably the most common association with moderator in English.
Exactly. And there are people who are absolutely brilliant panel moderators, and I really admire what they do. It's very different to what I do. And I think to me, it's slightly more content focused. Like somebody who's really good at moderating a panel is either very knowledgeable about the topic at hand, or they are very good at asking insightful questions that are maybe a bit provocative, or like get something out of the panel that wouldn't happen if they were just having a conversation themselves. So is there a content link?
Yeah, I think that's a key distinction for me also, and it's funny because I think it's got a link with a very, I mean, probably the most important part of all of this conversation we're going to have, which is what does that mean for your choices as a moderator or facilitator, or as a client for what you want to achieve with a particular gathering. And what I notice is indeed, I mean, for me, it's also very clear that the moderator is someone that is taking care of a particular conversation, of the speakers and their content expertise that they have to bring. And the idea, or at least the notion that I sense from clients that want a moderator, is that they want that moderator to indeed be knowledgeable about the subject matter. And it's interesting because I don't know about you, Lucy, but I've had lots of clients that came to me sometimes expecting or sometimes knowing that I had subject matter expertise in their topic, and for them that was an important point. Whereas for me, actually, I mean, I've been facilitating countless of events where I knew nothing about the topic, and unless it's a very, very arcane type of domain like genetics, you don't actually need to understand a lot of the stuff to help a group, support a group in finding the right questions and finding the direction that they're seeking, etc. But it seems like a lot of our clients have that expectation that subject matter expertise is important, and even more so with moderation. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, a similar theme came up. So the previous video that I did was with Laura Kristin Skuladotter on the topic of consulting versus facilitation, and exactly the same thing came up again. Right? Like we talked about how it's possible and actually sometimes desirable that your facilitator isn't a topic expert, because if you are a topic expert, people treat you differently in a way that sometimes leads to undesirable outcomes, because you're trying to get something out of the group rather than position yourself as this expert. So that one keeps coming up.
And there's an important nuance, or maybe a couple of things to mention about this in passing, because I think if you do have, when speaking strictly about facilitation, when you do have subject matter expertise, I think on the one hand, on the positive side, you can actually get a sense of what might be smarter questions or more useful questions, even though, I mean, I have also my reservations about the role of questions in the arsenal of a facilitator, but that is definitely a plus. A minus is indeed, and I think that's what you were hinting at, that if you know the topic, it's going to take more discipline for yourself to stay out of the content and focus on. I mean, you're there to focus on the process, and I think even more importantly, focus on the relations between the people that are there, and that is something that for me, in the job of a moderator, is not really expected. It can happen, but it's not a big requirement of a moderator, at least in my view, that they pay attention to the clients, to the relations. Whereas in the work of a facilitator, and for me, it's become clearer and clearer as time went by, that relational work is possibly even the most important. I mean, I'm at a point when I'm almost telling my clients that I'm going to support their objectives, etc. But for me, that doesn't really matter. What matters is actually building the relationships with each other, because that is the key for them to crack their problems now and in the future. In moderation, you're just exploring content together. Do you want to sort of look at the difference of the type of questions that facilitators and moderators are wondering about, perhaps?
I would love to. Do you want to lead that section?
Yeah, at least what I see again. I mean, it comes back to that point of the content. I think that a moderator is probably going to indeed, because of their subject matter expertise, ask about follow-up questions on the content, on really exploring something further, and maybe like more a coaching type of questions of oh, there is something interesting that I would like to double click on to find out more about. Whereas I think a facilitator may not so much. I mean, it could happen that you ask this type of content questions, but I think it's much more again about the process and about the relation and about the effect of particular insights and inputs from people on the rest of the group. So what's emerging for all of you folks hearing this comment that Terry has made, for instance, or how is that helping us to understand how to achieve the objective that we've set, etc. I think it's different kinds of questions in that sense. You don't need to go. It's for them to explore whatever they want to explore in the content.
Yeah.
But as a moderator, you're really expected to find what is valuable in the contributions of everyone somehow. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that came across in the research is that actually facilitators can work with moderators. Right? Like it can be really useful to have both of those skill sets in the room, where you have one person who's looking at maybe like how the humans are reacting, how they're working together, what's landing, and there's one person in making sure that the content like really makes sense. So we asked on LinkedIn, what is the difference between moderation and facilitation? And lovely Pearl responded to us that the moderator is the red thread in a program or event. They are the glue between your sessions that are run by others, or the glue in a session to help guide speakers, a panel, and engagement between the audience and the speakers. A facilitator is somebody who designs a process for a group, a way to get from a need to outcomes. They're using methods/frameworks to help the group connect, work together, strategize, etc. I guess in a way, a moderator is guiding a conversation and a facilitator is guiding a process. So yeah, like that was because Pearl obviously does both. And I think this is a really interesting framing of it. And there's several different definitions in here, some of which I hadn't previously called moderation, but I think it's really interesting that she calls it moderation. Yeah, what's your take on this?
I think I resonated with quite a bit of what Pearl mentioned there. I think that broadly I agree, or at least I also see that indeed a moderator is probably focused on a conversation, on a given segment of conversation on particular content. Whereas indeed a facilitator at least is expected to work on the entire process. But I think there's a couple of things there maybe worth mentioning. One is the fact that you can actually have entire events that are built as conversations after conversations. It's like, so where a moderator would be leading, and you would hardly need a facilitator, because you're basically just having moments of exploring a particular content with the participants. The question there, though, is I mean, is that a good use of the time? And I think that's one of the for me one of the interesting things indeed of what you offered about. There's a point in having maybe a facilitator and a moderator, because it's easy also for people that work a lot with participatory processes and facilitators to say, oh, we don't need moderation, we don't need to have a lot of content, etc. Well, I can tell you that actually one of the most catastrophic events that I got to facilitate was it was catastrophic for many reasons. One of them being that it was in Spanish, the one and only time I facilitated in Spanish, and burned my fingers. But another part was that I basically I really wanted I facilitated steering much more from the participatory way without adding enough content, and the group actually wanted to have content almost transferred over to them. So it was like really a match made in hell, and it really didn't work. And what I'm saying, where I'm going with this is that it is actually, if you gauge, if you balance how you share the content and how people can process it, digest it, use it, etc., content can be fantastic. And in this case, indeed, having a moderator that comes to make sure that everyone is introduced properly and that the content is absorbed and that important notions are clear to everyone is extremely helpful.
Yeah.
The only thing is, yeah, it shouldn't be the entire event, but
Yeah.
that's the story.
You read my mind. So yeah, I think that's the other pattern that I see a lot with some events, where the traditional way of running an event is kind of an information or a PowerPoint marathon, where one person gets up on stage, followed by the next person, followed by the next person, and that is a place where you would maybe lean towards a traditional moderator. But I think the thinking has evolved in the sense that we now, like, we understand nowadays that people can't process that amount of information, and that's not the best way. That's not the best way to get that information to go in. So yeah, +1 to what you're saying, that basically you need some kind of balance between giving them these inputs and impulses and inspirational bits, but then the chance to actually process that and to work out what it means for you and what you're going to do with it. Otherwise, you're just dumping a load of information on people and they're going to go home.
Do you want to look into a little bit the sort of the mindset also of what are some of the key differences between moderator and facilitator? Again, I mean, I think as people will have picked up from this conversation, it's a mix. I mean, there is no science. I think it's more like we're exploring potential differences and similarities. Some of it is very subjective, I think, also, but yeah, it's our takes on that.
Exactly. You read my mind. And I think maybe that's a good point to bring up our next quote from LinkedIn, because I think some of the, certainly to me, there's a strong link between like my association with the words and like how they actually end up playing out, both in terms of the mindset of the person doing it and maybe the mindset of the people who are asking us to do this work. Okay. So I really liked this quote, or the fact that Yura pointed out that the roots of the words moderator and facilitator point to like in moderator's case, the idea of kind of controlling or governing, and facilitator comes from a root which conveys to make stuff easy, and this is a theme that came up quite a lot. So when we asked people about moderation, words like management, words like control, govern kept coming up. And I think that there is a kind of sense where when you're moderating, there are some constraints that you're trying to keep things within. that certainly appeared to come up again and again and again. So yeah, how have you seen this play out in your experience, Ewan?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I mean what I completely share the feeling of a moderator controlling things a lot more than a facilitator. I think a facilitator is very, at least a good facilitator or an experienced facilitator is very open to whatever emerges and works with that rather than, oh, we have a plan, we're just going to roll with a plan and that's it. No, I mean, you're really there. You're really, in my definition, a facilitator's job is to help everyone do the best thinking. And in doing that, that means that you're really keeping open to whatever is alive for the participants. And if that takes you out of direction, you have to follow that, of course, within boundaries, within constraints. But so I think there's that notion of control, and I think related to that then is the particularly the control of time is probably I mean that's a very tricky one, because I think even among facilitators, there's countless of ways to deal with time management. But I think in the arsenal of a moderator, it really is essential to have very, very good time management.
The idea that both facilitators and moderators have to be really good with managing time. But moderators particularly, because things tend to be a little bit more unstructured in a conversation, or the types of conversations that they might be leading. Whereas I certainly feel free as a facilitator to make a judgment call about how I use time. And I think quite often in moderation settings, you've got a set time for a panel, or you've got a set time with a speaker because they have to go off and go, like they're coming in to do like a cameo or something in your workshop, and they have to go back and do their day job. So you have to be like very, very controlled with that. Whereas, being a little bit more responsive, I think, in facilitation.
And something else to add on this is that I think indeed precisely because you want to make sure that the presenters follow their time and respect the time for interaction with the audience. And I think if you're in that sort of setting as a moderator, it's really important to do that. But also indeed you don't have to be open to the emergence. What you're doing is ensuring that information is passed on and that people are clear about it, maybe react a little bit about it, but it's not about co-creating. Whereas I think if you're facilitating, you're actually, this is also one of the key differences in the mindset and between the two. A moderator, for me, typically is operating in the realm of the simple and complicated domains where, you're exploring things, but it's not about co-constructing. It's not about responding to emergence. It's not about dealing with a high amount of complexity. Whereas a facilitator, at least where there is value in bringing a facilitator, is when there's that messiness of human interactions and that complexity is in the room, and so you need to actually respond to the emergence. And I think for that reason, if you're a facilitator and the conversation gets out of hand, you should have more flexibility with time, because sometimes the right call might be indeed, we're not going to achieve anything with this conversation, so let's just park it, let's move on, etc. And sometimes you actually, by spending another 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes, the group will feel much more complete about what they achieved. And it really makes sense to be more elastic in that. And for that matter, a nice little provocation is as far as time management is concerned, I've learned a long time ago myself to no longer manage time all by myself, and it's changed my life as someone that facilitates sessions. I co-manage time with the person in charge, whoever that is, sometimes with a group, because they are the ones that know, okay, for this conversation we really want to explore more or not. Who am I, not knowing the subject matter, to say this is enough?
Yeah, exactly. There's one more topic under the heading of mindset that I think is one of my motivations for actually wanting to do this conversation with you, because when I went freelance, one of the first clients that I was ever approached by came to me and said, I'm looking for a facilitator or a moderator. And I was like, tell me what the difference is. Like, tell me in your mind what the difference was. And they didn't really know. But the situation was that there'd just been a massive restructure, and they were really, really worried about some of the kind of emotional things that were going to bubble up inevitably in the session. And the feeling that I got from them was that they were leaning slightly more towards the word moderator, because they wanted somebody to put a lid on it. So they wanted somebody to control it. And ever since that moment, I've had a bit of a difficult relationship with the word moderator, because what I feel very strongly, that in order to get some of the results that we need to get as facilitators, and particularly in some of the work that I do, is that there needs to be space for emotions, and sometimes you have to let those come out. So I'm very, very uncomfortable with this definition of moderation, which is about like putting a lid on stuff and containing it. And I do think that kind of comes through sometimes. That's why I have a difficult relationship with the word moderator when it's used for what I consider facilitation.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine, and I can relate to that also. I mean, and like, yeah, I also it's not that I have an issue with the term, but I find it's not really my forte to be a moderator. And I'll come back to the emotions, which is the more important thing. But one of the other differences that I see is, at least typically the way I've seen it play out, it may be different in different contexts, is I sense there's more formality involved in the world of moderation because you are about, especially in academic circles, for instance, respecting the distinguished speakers in certain cultures as a Herr, Doctor, Professor, whatever, MSc, whatever. There's all kinds of titles that come on top of it. But I think indeed that I don't think that, at least in what I've observed, I don't see moderators actually pay attention or have it as one of their mandates to attend to the emotions. And if they do erupt high emotions, I'm not sure that that the moderator that doesn't have some facilitation experience as facilitator or mediator or someone that works with a lot of emotions, coach, whatever, is actually well prepared to deal with that. And I think that that's where again that human messiness we were mentioning earlier on. A facilitator really has to not only not close the lid, but actually work with that, because that could even be a breakthrough for the group to create or to contribute to a higher psychological safety, and to also ensure that people really feel supported and heard and respected and all of that in the group. So it really is important for a facilitator to work with that. So yeah, I can relate.
Yeah. Sounds terrifying. Promises not like it is possible. When you let that stuff out, good stuff happens. But yeah, it needs handling with extreme care. So,
and I think it's also, I mean, it may be again perhaps a personal pet peeve, but I think that's, for me, that's why I thrive in the informal world of facilitation compared to any formal world, because I think formal worlds are getting us to aspire to strive for perfection, for professionalism, for all of that. And I think that actually there's a lot of good in recognizing that we are imperfect and that we are subject to high emotions, that we are subject to failings, that we all do. It's very universal, and I think that universal sharing makes also that connection more easily possible, because once you recognize, oh, they're not perfect, etc., it makes them more relatable, more approachable. You feel better about yourself, and that makes that connection, much easier, which I think, again, at the end of the day, is probably the ultimate goal, I think, of more or less all facilitated collaborations.
yeah.
So
I wanted to do the skill set stuff quickfire, where maybe I say something. I'm not going to tell you whether I believe it or not. I just want to see what reaction happens on your face.
okay.
Okay, so
Go for it.
I'll try and do
Cool.
poker face. Facilitators deal with activities and moderators deal with conversations.
I think it mixed, because facilitators also deal with conversations.
Yeah, but I think maybe moderators don't deal as much with activities typically.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Except if you have, like, again, it's part of the big five, almost the panel discussion is the typical.
So we've already talked about how so both need timekeeping as a strong skill, but kind of summarizing here a bit, I think the point where we landed was facilitators have to be a bit more flexible with the attitude to time.
Yes.
And moderators are kind of like, hire a moderator if you really, really want to stick in a set time box.
If you have a moderator that has a very flexible time management, then you end up with that scenario from the memo, or the first event that I joined 2 organizations ago. We were sent as participants to lunch 2.5 hours after the planned time. It was like nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon because of that badly managed set of presentations. Can you believe it? So this is what happens when you have flexible time management and moderation. Not good.
Okay, you get hungry, angry participants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, goodness. And other things in the skill set world, synthesis.
Yeah. More important for a moderator, although very important also for a facilitator, not so much for synthesizing everything, but at least tracking the conversations that are going on at the same time. I think that is really crucial for a facilitator.
Is there anything else that you would mention in the skill set bucket?
I think there's a lot of advanced active listening skills that
Hmm.
are very important for a facilitator, maybe less so for a moderator. And again, all the relational things, so validating, acknowledging, inviting a more diverse contributions from the people.
Hmm.
All of these, I think, should be part of a basic repertoire of
Hmm.
facilitators. They're nice to have for a moderator. Although I do think that the moderator being able to paraphrase or summarize what you heard in
Hmm.
your own words is really helpful also to make sure that you convey the important content that the
Hmm.
presenter or whatever is sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You saying that made me realize that I think there's an implicit assumption in, I think, all of the definitions that we've heard of moderation, including PELs, where there's an audience and there's participants in the moderation world, right? Like those are the two things, right? And so you're kind of managing like two distinct groups in some senses with moderation, whereas I think, and tell me tell me if this makes any sense and if that's how you see it as well. Like with a facilitator, you're mainly dealing with like the group as a whole, right? Like that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
agree.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Co-creation for facilitators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on the skill set in the skill set bucket?
I think, yeah, I mean, in relation to the activities, and even though it's for me, I think the cherry on top of the cake, it's actually quite important for a facilitator to have built their own repertoire of what I call participation formats. You can call them facilitation methods, whatever
Hmm.
structures. Whereas as a moderator, again, you don't really need to have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to have also good logistical understanding, but for different reasons. For a moderator, probably the logistics is related to how you introduce the speakers,
Hmm.
the protocol around that, etc. And for moderators, also all the props that you need to bring, etc.
Yeah.
We haven't even made a distinction between online and offline,
Yeah.
but yeah,
That can be round
let's not
two.
even go there at this
We can
stage.
do that in a follow-up thing. Okay, so we've covered purpose, we've covered mindset, we've covered skill set. Is there anywhere else that you want to take this conversation?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think on particularly the what are the choices that you're facing as the person either moderating or facilitating? Because I think it's important
Hmm.
to for yourself to realize what you are doing, what the client asks you to do, how comfortable you are to do it. And I think particularly for the clients that want to either have a moderator or facilitator to really understand what it is that they're trying to achieve.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of stuff there to I think what you explained, what the story you shared earlier on about your clients wanting to hire you as moderator or facilitator, not knowing the difference. I think your question was really crucial because I think that reveals a lot of the. I mean, it's what you try to do when working with clients at process design stage to understand what it is they're trying to achieve, and even when they have like a pretty well conceived idea of what it is they want to do, you find out in a conversation there's always some unexplored
Hmm.
angles, and so I think this is crucial, and this is the most crucial part. So is it what is the place you want to give to content in your event, in your gathering? What are you doing to ensure that balance between the content and processing that content?
Hmm.
What about high emotions? What about co-creation? Is this something you want to
Hmm.
do? Uh, and yourself, I think, also realizing in particularly what are you comfortable doing? Because if you're being hired to be a facilitator and you're actually at heart you really want to moderate, or vice versa,
Hmm.
you're really setting yourself up for a very very delicate experience.
Yeah, I feel like that's an excellent way to wrap this up, because yes, I love working with people who are really good at moderation. Uh, it's not my favorite thing to do, and I really admire people who are really good at that. And I know that not everybody, like facilitation, the emergence, and the kind of dealing with the that kind of emergent situation that facilitators deal with is not what every person loves. So I think that it's a great pair situation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's even possible to for yourself to hold these different functions and to be a moderator for a segment, to be a facilitator for the rest of the event, etc. But
Yeah.
again, just ask yourself, what does that mean? What are these implications? I think, as you said, I mean, I'm like you. I really find words to be very important because they carry a lot of load in terms of the mental models that people
Yeah.
bring up with, and that has a very direct effect on how a group is coming together, on how people are communicating with each other, etc. So I think it's really important. And for that, a little provocation is, even if you're moderating, I mean, there's almost a connection with another of your sessions, potentially the difference between moderator and an MC, because you can also be like borderline MC when you're like maybe much more informal, maybe more on the also on the fun side, perhaps, although you don't have to be, but
Yeah.
it's one take on it. And I think you can actually be a moderator that is like bordering on being MC, and that's again a different way, because I think an important notion here, one of the reasons why I also don't really feel comfortable in the world of moderation is I think again that balance between how much information can people handle, and I noticed that it's just very difficult to absorb so much content. So having more of that informality and ways to playfully work around that creates surprise. And I think that again that gets people out of the big five, because what happens, the big five in themselves are not a problem. So the big five, maybe to summarize, shall I summarize? So the big five are the status update, the managed discussion, the open discussion, which people describe the goat rodeo, the presentation, and the brainstorming sessions. And each of these five, actually, for me, they're not. I know some people have a big problem with them, but for me, they're not a problem. Like a lot of things, like PowerPoint is not a problem per se. How they are used, particularly as a default option, and I think that's the problem. Once one of these formats becomes a default option in everyone's mind, then people come in with a particular mindset, and what you want to do, at least in a facilitated conversation, is to make sure that people come with as much of a learner attitude of a curious mind as to what's going to happen, and I think that's the danger. So
Yeah.
if you are bringing content, can you actually challenge yourself to bring that content in ways that is going to put people on their toes? I think
Yes.
there's something to explore there.
So I think we're probably at a good place to wrap it up. Would you like to tell us where people can find you on the internet?
Well, they can find me there, indeedprocesschange.net. That's my little website, and you can find me in many places online, because I used to work a lot on knowledge management and communication, so I left traces online a lot. I want to also mention that again, with a lot of appreciation for the world of moderation, just moderate with moderation and facilitate without moderation, because I think facilitation skills are useful skills for moderators and everyone around,
Yeah.
not just for groups, but even for your life. So yeah.
Yeah. And shameless plug for Ewen, because he's an amazing person at teaching people how to lead conversations as facilitators. So if you want to know, in that kind of gray area between moderation and facilitation, how to like really structure good participatory, I think they're slightly more facilitated than moderated conversations, if I'm honest. Follow this man. It's fantastic. And so, yeah, thank you very much, Ewen, for joining me today. I think that was fantastic. I needed to get this out of my system. And
follow Lucy for all kinds of quirky and amazing conversations and facilitations. She also knows like so much about so many different formats, and with bringing increasing clarity every time with all these sessions. So thank you for this. It was lovely.
Very, very kind. I will do one shameless plug for myself, which is if this type of nerdery is something that you gravitate towards and you want to know more about the nuances of facilitation, what is facilitation, where are the edges, where does it become something else, how do we get really good at it, I write a Substack over at Facilitation Mindset, and there is a QR code on screen, and I will put the link in the description box. I think it's a lot of fun over there. You should come join us. I'm a lot more cheerful over there than I am on LinkedIn. So, yeah, thank you, Ewen, very much. And we can just wave goodbye. We will be back next time with another topic.
Right, looking forward to it.
Until then, bye.
Cheers.
Bye. Thanks for watching. If you'd like more from the edges of facilitation, including conversations such as facilitation versus consulting and facilitation versus training, follow the YouTube channel. If you've landed here from somewhere else, you can find the YouTube channel at bit.ly/Lucy Facilitates. See you next time. There's one more mindset related story. There's one.
Lovely.